So you've tried it, and maybe you tried it on Tuesday, and maybe it was Wednesday, and maybe you're just still sitting on it and you haven't pulled the trigger yet. Either way, you're here. So something must have landed. Well, here's what I want to say before I get into anything today. If you've tried something from the last two episodes and it got, well, weird, like kids looked at you like you had three heads, the room got a little bit loud, it didn't go the way you pictured in your head the night before, that's great. That means you did it right. That's not failure. That's just the first rep. Because here's the thing nobody tells you when you start changing how you teach. The first time you do it, it feels like you broke something. It's not broken, it's just new. And new is uncomfortable. And it's uncomfortable before it becomes effective. So today we're going to close out our three episodes. We had three episodes, one argument. The model you've been looking for has been sitting down the hall the whole time. The assignment is the problem and the fix. And today we're talking about what it actually looks like in your classroom, your subject, and as I like to say, your Tuesday. I'm Dan Thomas. This is the Tech Ed Clubhouse podcast. Let's finish our roll. So I want to name something before we get practical, because if I skip this, some of you are going to try one thing from today and stop, and I don't want that. There's a wall you're hitting, and the wall hitting isn't time. I know it feels like it is. You've only got 47 minutes, 50 minutes, 80 minutes, whatever it is. A unit test on Friday, 28 kids, 2 of them on IEPs or more. One of them, it will absolutely lose it if you change something about the routine. I know. I've been there. That's not the wall. The real wall, the real barrier is the sequence. Because this is the way we were trained, the way we were taught throughout our entire educational career, all the way back to kindergarten. Content first, explain it or over-explain it, practice it, then assess it. That sequence isn't just a habit, right? For a lot of us, it feels like that's our job. It feels like being responsible, effective, professional, teacher. But when you flip it and you put the problem in front of the explanation, kind of feels like less. It feels like, dare I say, negligence, or like we're skipping something, or we're taking an easy way. Like you're just throwing stuff at the kids without the tools to handle it. And I get that feeling. And I'm here to tell you that feeling is lying to you. It's not telling you the absolute truth. It's not telling you where you need to be, because that feeling, that discomfort, that is actually the moment. That's the moment the kid's brain wakes up, when they don't have the steps yet, when they have to actually think about what to do next. You didn't fail them. You weren't negligent. You didn't skip something. What you did is you finally gave them something worth thinking about. In that sequence, the sequence that we talked about earlier, where you pre-deliver the content, you feel like that's your safety net because you're in control. And I'm telling you, that feeling, that sequence, that is the ceiling. That's as high as our kids can go. And here's what's underneath that, if we're going to be real honest here. A lot of us, like I said, teach the way we were taught. Everybody went to school, and I'm generalizing. Everybody went to school, so everybody's an expert on how you should teach. Well, that's worst words in education is that's how we've always done it. And I'll tell you that. That's a character flaw. That's not anybody's fault. There's no blame there, but that's just how it works. You go through your 12 years of K-12, and you sit in your school seats and you go through college lectures. You know, the boring ones. You show up in September and you teach the way the game was modeled for you. Right? Am I right here? It's what you know, right? And it's what you've done, and it's worked. And you get rave reviews, and you get kids that learn, and the test results are awesome. And just like those kids, you played the game. And if you've been in the game long enough, you're probably pretty good at the game. But here's the problem. Here's where the shift changes. The game of school has changed. Because AI didn't break your classroom. Right? It didn't break what you were doing. And we've talked about this, and go back to the last episode. It broke the illusion that compliance and doing what was asked was the same thing as thinking. And now, as a result of this exposure, of this revelation, dare I say, we have to update our toolbox. We have to update our moves. So I'm going to break it down a little bit and talk about, in my opinion, what it actually looks like. Not theory. And then you go back to your classroom on Tuesday and you're like, well, what the heck did Dan say? I can't do that. Right? I want to tell you what it actually looks like. Not what it looks like down the hall in the band room, in my STEM room. But I want to talk about what it actually looks like in your classroom, your subject, and I'm going to focus on the core 4, on Tuesday morning. So let's take, in no particular order, and I'm just going to caveat this in little disclaimer here as we start, that I am by no means a pedagogical guru. I am by no means trained in any kind of high-level doctorate in pedagogy or any of those learning methods, right? This is just observations. This is just anecdotal evidence. This is just what I have seen and found to work across the board, right? So as we look at this today, so let's take ELA, or English Language Arts, or whatever language it is you're teaching. So common theme is you got an essay coming up, right? Because you write stuff, right? You read stuff, you write stuff, and maybe you're teaching something about thesis statements, right? How to start your essay. Maybe it's argument structure. I don't care, whatever it is. So you're teaching some type of the essay creation process. So typically, and maybe you do this, maybe you don't, but typically your move is you explain or over-explain what a thesis is. You show examples of, this is a good thesis. Here's some good ones. And you walk through it on the board. You say, this is what it's got to have in it. These are the things that make it effective. This is where you put it in your essay. And maybe you have some type of graphic organizer or some type of template to write some of these things. And then you give the kids time to write one. Sound familiar, right? You're like, Dan, that's what I do. It's effective. My kids can write thesis statements. I'm gonna challenge you a little bit on this. Here's what I'm going to call your Tuesday move, right? Because we talked about the Tuesday test. If you don't remember, the Tuesday test is what can work in my classroom on Tuesday morning without a lot of effort, without a big heavy lift, without redesigning what I'm doing. So here's your Tuesday test for your ELA thesis statement lesson that maybe you're given on Tuesday. Don't explain anything. Take a broken argument, a poorly written thesis statement, a bad one, obviously terrible one, because those are easy. Maybe you want to start there. I don't know. But something that's just not right. And I'm sure if you've been in the classroom long enough, you've got plenty of those to write on the board. Maybe it's missing a counterclaim. I don't know. Circular reasoning, something like that. And just give the kids 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes and say, what's wrong with this? There's your bell ringer. There's your first 10 minutes of class. And then let them argue about it. Let them share some thoughts. Let them get it wrong. Some will get it right away, right? You're going to have that. But they're going to get it for the completely wrong reason. Right? They're going to understand what's wrong, but they're going to understand what's wrong not because of what you're looking for, but maybe a way you didn't look at it. And that's great. That's awesome. That's data. We talk about data all the time. That's thinking. And what you're doing is you're watching how they process argument before you told them the rules about arguments. Right? And then after you've gone over that, and only then do you step in and you name it. That thing that you're all circling around, that's called a counterclaim. And here's what a strong one looks like. And here's why it matters. Right? So they get that. Now the vocabulary of counterclaim, thesis statement, circular reasoning, whatever it is, now it has a home. It has something to attach to the kids, in the students. And it's not something that they copied off the board, right? It's the name for something that they've already had to discuss, wrestle with, right? They own it already in 5 minutes, right? They have some ownership of it in 5 minutes. Something that a 40-minute lecture might not be able to do for most of your kids. And that's the difference, right? It went from, here it is, copy this, to, what's wrong with this? Now make it better, right? Because that's the world we live in. So give that a shot, ELA teachers. And I know we're going to take a look at math next. And math teachers, I know you're saying, Dan, I can't skip steps. It's math. They need the steps. And I'm not saying skip the steps. No, they need the steps. There's a process in math. But maybe we just push them back a little bit. So here's the move. Here's the math move, right? Don't explain the concept. Maybe you're doing Pythagorean theorem. Maybe you're doing multi-step equations. Maybe you're doing long division. I don't know what it is you're doing. Put a problem up on the board. Probably do that already, right? You probably do have bell ringers in board work or worksheet work or whatever it is. But put the problem up cold. No steps, no example, no preloading it at all. Just the problem. And give them 5 minutes to solve it. Right? So you take, here's the problem, solve the problem, you got 5 minutes, go. Now, during those 5 minutes, you can be walking around, listening and seeing what they're doing your attendance, right? All those kind of administrative stuff that we have to do to start class. Now, after those 5 minutes up, right? And you start this process. Here's what happens. And I've seen it, and it's awesome and it's amazing. Some kids are going to freeze. You didn't show us how to do this. I can't do this. You didn't show us, right? I didn't show you. You are right. Give it a shot. What's the worst that's going to happen? Some kids are going to guess at some things. They're going to do that anyways. Some kids are going to start doing math you didn't expect them to do. And that kid in the back that never raises his or her hand, that might be a behavior issue, he or she's doing something. Maybe it's wrong. Maybe they're doing it a totally opposite way that it should be done. But they're doing something. And that something is worth more than that 10 minutes, 15, 20 minutes of front loading an assignment, because we have a tendency to over explain. Because I'm going to tell you this, math teachers, those wrong answers are not failure. Again, those wrong answers are data. They tell you exactly where the gap is. Because why spend 10 minutes explaining something the kids already know how to do? Right? And it's a way better than a pre-assessment on a Google form because you can see, hear, observe the thinking. You can ask a kid, well, what did you do here? And now you've got a real conversation that took 5 minutes on a Tuesday, right? That you could, it's a beneficial 5 minutes, better than the 10 minutes you would have spent preloading this and then having to re-explain it. And now after that 5 minutes or that 10 minutes, you step in and you say, this is what we're doing. Here's the process. Let's look at what some of you guys tried and some of the thought processes you guys did. And let's connect that to what actually works and what we're actually trying to do with this. And here's the amazing piece, right? Here's the amazing piece, math teachers. You didn't skip the rigor. You just moved it, right? The kids are doing the thinking first, right? You're putting the learning on the students, right? And they struggled. And then when you show them the steps, you get a lot of, oh, I get it. You get a lot of, that makes sense. Instead of, could you go over that again? What did you do here? I don't understand. In that relief, in that aha, in that, oh, as a tool, that makes the thing we're already trying to do easier. Makes your job easier. And that's a completely different relationship with math than writing down steps and trying to memorize them. And it's a whole lot better than you've ever needed them before. Right? So give it a shot on Tuesday. Give it a shot. And I'm not leaving you out, science class. You're one of my favorites. You're running a lab. Right? You've probably spent the better part of 20 minutes explaining the lab. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to build this machine. We're going to make this work. We're going to dissect this, titrate this solution. I don't know what we're doing. Whatever it is you're doing, right? So here's your move, science teachers, because we're going to get into that lab. Don't front load the lab. Run it first. And I know. I hear all my biology teachers and I hear all my chemistry teachers and I hear my good friend, the physics teacher, saying, what the heck are you talking about? I got to tell them what to do. Why? Why do you got to tell them what to do? Now, I understand if it's inherently dangerous, if there's something involved with some opportunity to potentially cause some injury. Absolutely. But don't front load it. Don't over explain and front load it. And I know that sounds terrifying. They're going to mix the wrong things. They're going to skip steps. They're going to get results they don't understand. Yep. 100%. They're going to screw it up. Put them in it. Give them the materials and give them the question. But don't give them the process. Let them figure out what to do with what they've got. Let the experiment be a mess. Let them get unexpected results and have to figure it out. Have to figure it out why. Why did I get results that the team over here didn't? Why are my results so wrong or not the same? Not necessarily wrong. Maybe wrong is the wrong word here. Right? So let them run with the lab a little bit and then debrief. Right? So you let them run, you let them get some bad data, and it maybe cost you 30 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, maybe a block. I don't know. So then you debrief. And here's what you're observing. And here's the name for it. Here's the scientific principle underneath that thing that just happened to your beaker. Now it's not a concept on a slide. Hey, we're going to do simple harmonic motion. It's an explanation for something they watched happen in front of them. And isn't that science? Isn't that what scientists actually do? they observe. Don't we want to teach that? Because isn't that one of the skills that we need in science? Is observation and seeing what's going on in our world around us. Because also, that's not something that you're going to come in on a Tuesday morning and explicitly teach. I can almost guarantee that you're not going to come in and explicitly teach your kids to observe. What did you see happen? Right? Probably guarantee that. But isn't that what we're trying to do with a lab? Isn't that what we're trying to do in the scientific world? Is observe what's going on and make rational arguments about what we've observed, seen, felt, what data we collected, and what the results mean? Isn't that what we're doing? And it could be a 40-minute lab. It could be an 80-minute lab. It could be a 20-second lab. Here's another example that I shared before. My 7th grade science teacher neighbor was doing classification, and she had a jar full of different sized marbles. And I go, well, what are you doing? She goes, well, we're doing classification. I don't know how to start it. I said, give them a bowl of marbles and tell them to sort them. Right? Tell them to sort them. Give them 5 minutes. But let them go. That's it. That's all you need. Some kid might sort them by size. Some kid might sort them by color. Some kid might sort them in a different way. And then you can say, what we did here was classification, right? So what are some physical attributes of it, right? So there's a great little thing. And now you've got, the kid has that something concrete to tie it to because they've experienced it. They've witnessed it. They've touched it. So give it a shot, science teachers. Okay, social studies guys. Love you guys too. All right. You guys have an opportunity here with some awesome stuff. Right? You got events going on. Maybe you're doing current events. Maybe you're doing the War of 1812. Maybe you're doing Boss Tweed and the political machine. I don't know. Put a primary document on the board. Give it to them in a worksheet. Put it on the overhead, whatever it is. Put a document in front of them. Maybe it's a speech. Maybe it's an oral, maybe it's Kennedy's speech at Rice University about space. Maybe it's a letter. Maybe it's just a picture or a political cartoon. Whatever it is that connects to whatever it is you want to teach that day. And then don't over-explain it. Don't contextualize it. Don't set it up. Try to avoid that, what you've been doing for probably a while. And just say, what do you think's going on here? What's the argument? Who wrote this and why? Right? Because they probably have an idea of what the context is around it, unless it's September first week of school and there's no context in what you're doing. But if you're at this point in the school year, they probably have an idea of what's going on, where they are in the unit and whatever. So just throw that up there on the board. Ask those questions, whatever the question pertaining to it might be, because you do this on the test, right? This is on New York, at least it was on New York State's social studies tests, the DBQ, document-based questions, or free response and whatever. But let them get it wrong. Partially right is great. You know what? So is totally out of the ballpark, right? Totally off base is perfectly fine. Because now when you give them context, when you explain the moment in history that's going on, they're not receiving information. They're correcting their own thinking. And that, my friends, that is a completely different level of engagement. And that different level of engagement goes beyond DOK1, goes beyond surface level, it goes beyond substitution, right? And it sticks, right? It sticks. So can you see a pattern across these 4 core subjects? Because they all do the same thing. And I break it down this way. Do something before you explain it. That something could be a build. That something could be a document. That something could be a math problem. That something could be whatever you want it to be. And let the experience of interacting with that information create the need for content and context. And hold the vocabulary until the concept is already in the room. Because now that connects. Now that is owned. And that's it. That's the whole move. Do something before you explain it. Let them experience it before the content, and add the vocabulary at the end. So, over the past couple weeks, I've been throwing a lot at you these past 3 episodes. ABC, activity before content, which we kind of just talked about. Content before vocabulary, or CBV. And if you've been following along, these 2 things are really just one idea, but 2 parts of it, right? It's one idea. I mean, can you see that? But do one thing, name it after. But here's the 3rd part I haven't named yet. I haven't mentioned, I haven't talked about. And it's been sitting what we've talked about all along. It's in the shop class when the wood doesn't fit and you go back and figure out why. It's also in the math problem when the kids ask at the end of class, what would you change if you tried it again? And that 3rd part is reflect. Oh, we got to write reflections. No. So the move is build, think, reflect, or BTR. Build is the activity we talked about. It's putting the problem in front of the kids before you explain it. It's that broken argument on the board. It's that robot back from the other episode where I said, go 39 inches. It's that primary source document with no context. The lab without steps. The build phase is where the thinking starts. And that's important. Think phase. Think is where the content starts to arrive. After they've already wrestled with it. After they've made some decisions in their head and hit some walls and, dare I say, struggled and failed. Now you can step in and connect it, what they did, to what it means. Now the concept has a home in their brain because their brain was already looking for it. And I'm no neuroscientist. I haven't studied the brain, but this works. And that think part is the ABC and the CBV working together. It's the activity before the content and the content before vocabulary working in harmony. And the reflect phase is the piece most of us skip because we, dare I say, run out of time. Or because we're cleaning up. Or because we've already told them that what they learned, so we figure they're done. But the reflect piece is where it becomes theirs, not yours. What would you change if you tried it again? Where did you get stuck? And why do you think you got stuck? What questions do you still have? Or how would you approach this tomorrow? And I just had a conversation with another gentleman about something similar to this the other day, right? And this is the piece where we need to intentionally design in. Because this reflection is not fluff. It's not a busy work assignment, and it's gonna struggle to get it working. But that's metacognition, right? That's a kid building his relationship with his or her own thinking, and they haven't been there. Because we walk out of the end of the day and we're fried, and the kids are doing backflips down the hallway because they haven't thought. Now, we want to flip that so that the kids are exhausted mentally when they walk out the door, and we're doing backflips down the hall. So this relationship between their own thinking and the content is what, in my opinion, what the portrait of a graduate is actually looking for when it says critical thinker, right? So we don't have to be afraid of portrait of a graduate work coming down the pipe. right? It's not looking for that kid to identify the correct, but that's not a critical thinker. It's a kid that knows how they think so they can adjust when thinking isn't working. Build, Think, Reflect isn't a new framework I'm handing you. It's the pattern that was already in the rooms we talked about in episode 2. The band director that builds the rep, thinks through the correction, reflects with the ensemble before the next run through. The coach that builds the play in practice, thinks through the breakdown on film, and reflects with the team before Friday night or after the Friday night game. Right? Simple things that we look at and simple things that we know. And I'll tell you that what? It's been there the whole time. I'm just bringing it out into the open. So we've had 3 episodes. This is the 3rd. 1 argument, and here's where it ends. I am not, nor will I ever advocate for a total overhaul of your classroom. I'm not asking you to throw out your worksheets. I'm not asking you to get rid of your multiple choice tests. I'm not asking you to get rid of your slide decks and your lectures. Right? And I'm not asking you to blow up your year-long, 6-week, 10-day lesson plan before the end of the year. Because I would bet that you're doing some awesome stuff. It just might need a little tweak. What I'm asking you to do is a simple thing. I'm asking you to do one thing and do it on Tuesday. Take one assignment, the one you're already doing, right? Take tomorrow's assignment and ask yourself this. Can my students complete this worksheet, assignment, lab, yada, yada, without making a single decision? Not a hard decision, any decision. If the answer is yes, or kinda, or maybe, that is your starting point. Put a problem in front of them before you explain it. Hold the vocabulary until after they've built the concept, and then at the end of class, ask them what they change. Build, think, reflect. And here's one thing I want you to say to a colleague before Tuesday. Find somebody in your building, maybe in your PLC, maybe it's the person next door, whoever, maybe it's your administrator. Invite them in and say this. I'm trying something different Tuesday. I'm going to take 5 minutes, try something new. I'm going to tell you how it goes. That's it. That's the whole ask. Because this conversation you have after Tuesday, the conversation about what worked and what didn't and what you changed, that's where it spreads. And by the way, that's Build, Think, Reflect. And it didn't change because of a PD day or a slide deck or from one teacher. It came from one teacher talking to another in the hallway. That's how this has always worked. So if you tried something from this series, I want you to tell me how it went. Good, bad, weird, awesome, terrible. Tell me I'm off base. I love all the feedback. I'm at Coach Thomas Tech on all the platforms. DM me, tag me. I read everything and I try to respond. And if you want to bring this work to your building, your team, your PLC, or on your PD calendar for this summer, my door is open. That's the work I do. That's the conversation I want to be part of. I'm Dan Thomas. This is the Tech Ed Clubhouse podcast. Give it some fun on Tuesday, and I'll talk to you next week.